Hello once again. We are meeting for this session, and in this lecture we will be discussing about the MOS capacitor. Basically, MOS capacitor means that it is a three-layer structure, the metal, oxide and semiconductor. So this structure itself forms a capacitor type of one device, and the operation, or we can say the characteristic of this MOS capacitor is very important to be understood in order to define the operating regions and the operation and we can say the current voltage characteristic of the MOSFET later on. So now today we will be discussing about it, what is MOS capacitor and what are the different operating regions of the MOS capacitor. So this is a two-terminal MOS structure. Two-terminal MOS structure means it is also known as a MOS capacitor. Some call it as a MOS varactor because the capacitance will be varied across this MOS layer when we are varying the gate voltage or the bulk voltage. Now see, this is the three-layer structure. Here this black one is the metal layer. The green in between is the oxide layer, which is in the case of MOS is constructed by silicon dioxide, and this under the green layer we have a substrate. Now as I am noting here that this is a NMOS, so that's why I have taken a P type substrate. If I must have taken the example of the PMOS, then this substrate will be of N type. So this is why we have a one layer over here, then in between insulating layer which works as a dielectric, and then below that we have a substrate layer which is again a semiconductor, which is a conducting layer. So when this structure is formed, this is known as a MOS structure. And now today we will be looking for the characteristic of these MOS structure, that how this structure will perform, what changes will come into the device operation if we are applying certain voltage on the top of this structure, which is known as a gate terminal. So now when looking for this energy diagram of a MOS structure, this is the metal side. In between we have a oxide and the semiconductor. Here certain energy levels are shown. So one by one we can see the EC, which is shown over here. It is the conduction band energy level. EF is the Fermi energy level. EV is the valence band energy level. This small q, this is the charge of electron or the electronic charge. Vg over here is the gate voltage, applied gate voltage, because in the MOSFET or the MOS structure, whatever be the input we will be providing as a in the form of a voltage, that will be given from this terminal, which is the top or the metal layer of the device. Then Eg, which is a band gap, this is given by this is your energy band gap, and this is basically the gap between the conduction and the valence band. And if we are talking of a silicon devices, then this Eg is 1.1 electron volt nearly. And phi m, phi m is the metal work function. Work function means the gap between or the energy required to jump or to transit a electron from the Fermi level to the free space level, that is known as the work function. So these are some very basic nomenclature which we are using in the entire derivation and the discussion. And when we will be talking of this MOS structure, so basically it has a three operating regions. One is known as accumulation, other one is the depletion, and third is the inversion. And the process of this is to form a conducting channel over here, so that when the MOSFET as a device will be fabricated or it will be structured, then it can start current conduction. This is a band diagram of a p-type semiconductor. Here in this band diagram, the layered energy bands are shown, where the lowest one, which is the valence band, is stated by EV. Above that we will be having a Fermi level, and this will depend upon the donor concentration, that where the proper situation of this Fermi level will lie upon. Above that we have an intrinsic Fermi level. Above that we will be having a intrinsic Fermi level, as this intrinsic level is a midpoint between the conduction and the valence band. And then the conduction band, and
the last or the topmost layer of the band diagram is a free space band, which is also known as a vacuum space, which is denoted by E naught. Now looking towards the nomenclature over here, the gap between the intrinsic and the Fermi level, that is known as a Fermi potential, and we denote it by by phi Fp, or it is also denoted as phi Bp. Now this suffix P over here means that we are talking of a p-type semiconductor. If this will be a case of the n-type semiconductor, then this P will be replaced by a small n over here. Now when we talk of the band gap is basically the gap between or the distance between the valence band and the conduction band, or more precisely to say, the top of the valence band to the bottom of the conduction band, that is our band gap. And for the case of a silicon as a semiconductor, this band gap or the energy gap is 1.1 electron volt. Now coming towards the electron affinity, this chi over here is known as a electron affinity, and this is basically a energy required by the conduction by the electrons present in the conduction band to move to the free space, that is known as a electron affinity. So this is all about the basic concept of a p-type semiconductor. Now we will move further from here. So if we see over here that what is the Fermi potential, then this Fermi potential phi f is given as the gap between Fermi level and the intrinsic level by the electronic charge. Now this is the Fermi level, or at a equilibrium, or when we are not applying any potential from the outsource, then we say that it is a equilibrium Fermi potential. EI is overstated as a intrinsic Fermi potential, and this is how we denote the Fermi potential. Now if I talk of the p-type semiconductor, so now I have a p-type semiconductor, then this Fermi potential is approximated as kT by Q natural log of Ni upon Na. Now what this is changed? Basically the Fermi potential is stated or is defined as the difference of the energies present at the Fermi level and the intrinsic Fermi level by the electronic charge, which is denoted by a small q. Now say if I have a case of a p-type semiconductor, then this Fermi potential will be given as kT by Q natural log of Ni plus Na. Now this K over here is the Boltzmann constant, this T is the absolute temperature, this is small q, it denotes over here the electronic charge, this Ni is the intrinsic concentration, and this is the acceptor ions or acceptor atoms concentration. Now if I change it for the n-type semiconductor, now this equation will change as kT by Q natural log of Nd upon Ni, where Nd is the concentration of the donor atoms and Ni is again the intrinsic concentration. So this is how we denote the Fermi potential. Now if I talk of the psi s, this is a work function of the semiconductor. This S over here denotes is over here in the suffix for the semiconductor. Now the question arises that what is this work function? So basically work function is the energy which is required by an electron to move from the Fermi level into the free space. So that is what we define the work function. I'll write it over here. Work function means energy required for an electron to move from Fermi level to free space. Now if we again remember the previous diagram, it means when I am talking of this statement, the energy required for an electron to move from Fermi level to a free space. that is known as a work function, and it is denoted as Q chi plus EC minus EF. So this is how we define the work function. So now moving towards the band structure of a MOS system. MOS means metal, oxide and semiconductor. This is a very important system to be understood because this is a one structure from where a semiconductor device MOSFET will come into a picture. Now over here the M stands for metal, O for oxide and S for semiconductor. Now when we are talking of the band diagram of a metal, oxide and semiconductor, here I have drawn this diagram with a reference that this metal used here is a aluminium, oxide used here is a silicon dioxide and the semiconductor used here is a P-type silicon. So this is how this is structured. Now from here it's clear that if we talk of a metal, then metal has a overlapped valence and energy band. So its Fermi level and the gap between the free space level, this is termed as a work function difference over here. And why it is shown over here? Because the valence and conduction band is overlapped and it is nearly 4.1 electron volt. In between we have a oxide layer. We know that oxide is an insulating layer. Now being an insulating layer, the energy gap between the valence and the conduction band is largest among the three different constitutions, and in the case of silicon dioxide this band gap is of 8 electron volt and the electron affinity of the silicon dioxide is nearly 0.5 electron volts. Now coming towards the semiconductor side, where I have taken a P-type semiconductor example. No, in the case of silicon, the band gap of the silicon is 1.1 electron volt. The electron affinity is 4.15 electron volt. Now this is a structure which we have to combine together to make a conducting device. Now next what I am going to design, again draw this energy band diagram, but now considering the physical contact between the three layers, or we can say considering the MOS capacitor type of a structure, where in which the metal, oxide and semiconductor layers are connected in such a way that the formation is similar to the capacitor formation. So now when I will be drawing this, as we have just seen that there is a work function difference between a metal and a semiconductor, and when they will be the energy bands will be connected with a physical contact, then the Fermi level will align with each other. So now there will be a certain change in the structure. This is a oxide layer in between. Then we have a conduction band and the valence band over here. In between, intrinsic level is there, which is at the mid, and yes, the Fermi level of the two. Here there is a metal, so the Fermi level will be denoted as a EFM, and this will come aligned with the Fermi level of semiconductor. This we have a P-type silicon over here. Here we have a metal. Considering again the aluminium, we have one case. Oxide over here is SiO2, which is a silicon dioxide. Now see what is happening over here due to the difference in a work function. See over here. As we know that there is a work function difference between a metal and a semiconductor, so what will be happening over here? When the three band diagrams or the three different type of a material come into physical contact, the Fermi level of the metal will align with the Fermi level of the semiconductor, and because of this alignment there will be a bending into the bands. Now from where this bending comes? Because when this alignment is taking place, then it means a voltage drop across the MOS system is being developed, and a part of that built-in voltage drop is occurring at the oxide layer And at the surface layer, this region which we call a surface layer, which is also known as a silicon dioxide and silicon interface, or it is also denoted as a interfacial region, the bending happens in this region. Now what will happen with this bending? This bending will is a significance of the difference in the work function, and because of the difference in a work function, the voltage which is developed across this system. What this is doing, basically this is bringing this intrinsic Fermi level closer to the Fermi level of the p-type silicon, and the amount by which it is bending, this is known as a psi s. This psi s is denoted as a surface potential, and this is always having a lesser value than the Fermi potential, which is, or we also call it as a bulk potential. Why bulk potential? Because in the semiconductor region, the entire surface is broken into two parts. The first part, this is known as a interfacial region, and this region which is untouched in the sense that whatever is happening at the metal side, the effect is minimum or no effect on the bulk region. So this is a bulk region, and whatever the effect we are seeing over here, that is in the interfacial region, which is known as a surface region also. So the bending of the bends will take place over here. Now because this is basically an equilibrium condition, what we supposed to study always, that when the equilibrium condition is achieved, or when there is a equilibrium, then all the energy bands are flat. But here in the MOS structure, because three different type of materials are added together, where one side is a metal, in between we have a highly insulating layer, and then the semiconductor. So this flat band structure is not possible at the equilibrium. For this, what we need to do is, we have to apply a potential which is equal to the work function difference of metal and semiconductor, and this potential is known as a flat band voltage. It means in order to achieve a flat band structure, this amount of a potential is required to apply towards the metal side, so that again the flattened band will be achieved. Flattened band means this kind of structure will be achieved again. Now over here, one question also arises, why there is a slope in the oxide? Because we are not, this is a non-conducting type of a layer. It does not have electrical properties, so there is no bending happening. So why this slope? So basically this slope is defining the electric field generated because of the potential difference at the two sides. So the higher top means that the electric field is generated in this direction. If suppose the construction is like this, then it shows that the electric field is generated in this direction. So basically the ramp which is produced at which is drawn at the oxide layer, that is showing the direction of the electric field. So in this case, when we are talking of the equilibrium case, where there is no externally applied voltage, the slope will be like this. Now if I talk of a flat band voltage, which is required or which is actually essential to have the flat bands when we are starting the operation for the MOS structure, this is not the only component which is affecting it. There is something else and very important, which is again affecting the bending of the bands, and which again will contribute to the flat band voltage. Now further I will discuss about that second component of the flat band voltage. For understanding that second component, we should firstly understand the property of the SiO2 layer, which is the intermediate layer in the MOS structure. where we have a metal at the upper side, oxide in the mid, and silicon, p-type silicon or n-type silicon at the bottom. Now if I talk of the SiO2 layer, then obviously everybody knows that SiO2 is an insulator. Yes, it is an insulator, but it is not a pure insulator. It is not a perfect insulator. It has some charges into it. Now from where these charges comes? Now these charges, I define these charges into two ways. One I note it as a QIT. QIT means interface traps. The charges which are developed because of the interface trap. Second I call Q oxide, or rather I will say as a QF. QF is fixed charge. Okay, now understand how these are going to be developed into the insulating material. See, I have this SiO2 which is grown over silicon, and this is that interface over here. Now if I see from this side, from the silicon side, when it is being grown, the interface trap charge are the more dominant one, or they are the source. The source is when above the silicon we are doing the oxidation, and if this is a silicon layer, then here the interface charge will be grown. Now when I move towards into the deeper region of the SiO2, then we have some fixed charges over here. Now I will firstly talk of the interface traps, that how they are generated. Suppose somewhere here I have some atom of a silicon, and we know that silicon is bounded like this. I am talking at this point, anywhere over here. Here also there must be a silicon, but suppose I have here a structure which is having a missing silicon atom over here. There is no silicon atom at this place. It is only having a 3 atoms bounded with a one single silicon atom. So this bond which is produced with a silicon and a missing silicon atom, or with a vacant space, this is known as a dangling bond. And this dangling bond is a root cause of the interface traps. Traps means a vacant place where some other atom can come and reside into it, and it may be some conductive material also, and this produces some charge into the insulator. Obviously that charge is not enough to start the conduction into it, but it is also not making it as a pure insulator. So this is how the interface traps are being generated into the silicon atom. Now I talk of the fixed charges. Now if I talk of the fixed charge, that from where this fixed charge in the silicon dioxide occurs. Now there is a transition from silicon to the SiO2, means when this transition is taking place from silicon to SiO2, then what is happening? At some time, rather than the formation of SiO2, some another compound is formed, which is suppose SiOX. This may be possible that we are not firstly formed the SiO2, some SiOX is formed, where OX is always having is always less than O2, and this is a cause of a fixed charge, because there will be some vacancy over here, and this will produce a charge into it, and because OX is always less than O2, so there is a vacancy. Vacancy means it is allowing something to come and trap into it. So this is always a positive. So if I talk of a QF, the fixed charge into SiO2 is always a positive charge. Now I redefine the flat band voltage over here. Earlier we have seen that flat band voltage is equal to the work function difference of the metal and semiconductor, and this is as a whole termed as phi ms. Now after looking towards the silicon dioxide charges, I will say that flat band voltage is denoted as this, where Q oxide is the oxide charges and C oxide is the oxide capacitance. So the flat band voltage is now defined as the difference between or you can say the work function difference minus the Q oxide upon C oxide, where this is a oxide capacitance. Why oxide capacitance is coming into picture? Because again I'll see, let you know over here, we have this type of a structure. This is a conducting layer, this is again a conducting layer, and in between we have a oxide which is working as a dielectric over here. So a capacitance type of a structure is formed, and hence there will be a significant oxide capacitance which is over here, and this is an oxide charge. We cannot null this charge. By any means we cannot reduce this oxide charge to 0, but we can reduce this charge by some extent, and that reduction can only be equal to 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 5. By this number only we can reduce it, we cannot make it 0. So obviously this will always be a part of a flat band voltage. So this is some concepts of the MOS structure which we have discussed just now. So now after the discussion on the flat band voltage and the MOS structure and its energy band diagram at the equilibrium state, now further we will move towards the MOS operation. Now when we talk of the operation of this MOS structure, this operation is having a 3 categories, or 3 steps are there. The first step is known as accumulation. Second comes depletion, and after depletion we have a inversion. Now when we talk of this accumulation, depletion, inversion, why we are doing so? Why these steps are required and what this process signifies basically? So when we operate this MOS structure into accumulation, then coming to the depletion, and then we are moving towards the inversion, basically this is a process of achieving a conducting medium into the device. So when the inversion will occur, this inversion process is basically that process where a conducting medium, which is known as a channel, that is completely formed into the device, and device is ready for the current flow. And above this inversion, this accumulation and depletion are the supported steps which are necessary to achieve the inversion. So one by one we will be going into deep of this. Now coming towards the accumulation. What is this? Now here I am taking again the example of a P-type MOS structure, or I can say that P-type silicon as a semiconductor, which is a substrate over here. Now when I talk of the MOS structure, MOS is having a 3-layer structure where upper one is the metal, middle is the oxide, and below we have a P-type substrate, which is a silicon material. Okay. This top side is known as a gate, and this is a substrate. For all the processes over here, accumulation, depletion, inversion, we take substrate at a ground potential as a reference terminal. Okay. So now moving further, when I talk of the accumulation, accumulation is a process where we provide a negative voltage, a small negative voltage. So what will happen? A few negative charge will occur at the metal. Now this is a P-type substrate. If this is a P-type substrate, it means holes are in the majority over here. It has a majority of holes, and few electrons, which is a minority carriers over here. Now when the accumulation is taking place, a negative charge is applied at the metal surface, then what will happen over here? Negative will repel the negative down and attract the positive up. So at this region, which is again known as the interfacial region, at this region only positive charge will be accumulated, and all the negative charge which were present over here, they will be suppressed into the deep substrate, which is a bulk region. Basically this substrate is divided into two parts. This is known as an interfacial region, and this is known as a bulk region. So whatever be the conduction will take place, the channel will be formed, that all will be in the interfacial region. Why this is so? Because this MOSFET is a low voltage device. We operate it at a low voltage, and the voltage which we are applying at the gate is not of such a high value that it will affect the carriers present in the bulk region. So that the effect of this voltage applied is only lies in the interfacial region, which is also known as a SiO2 surface region. Okay. So now what is happening in this accumulation? Basically, accumulation says that accumulating the majority carriers into the interfacial region. That is the accumulation. And now what is happening over here basically? We are applying a negative voltage and the substrate is ground. So the electric field generated will be from this side. From substrate means from higher potential towards the negative or the lower potential. Now if I draw the energy band diagram for this, so what it will look like? This is an oxide layer. Now we know that this ramp in the oxide states the flow of the electric field. Now we know over here that the electric field is I'm mistaken over here. Electric field direction will be from lower to higher, because there is a negative potential. This will be the at the lower potential, and this will be at the higher potential, which is at a 0. Okay. Now what will happen at the semiconductor? Here we will be having a p-type silicon. This side we will have a metal over here. So what will happen with the bands? See, this is our valence band. Here this is a conduction band. In between we have an intrinsic band. Somewhere here lies the Fermi potential, Fermi level. Okay. Here there will be the Fermi level of the metal. And see how the bending will take place. How we will decide that the bands will bend upside or downside. There are two ways to decide. One way is with the generated electric field, that what is the direction of the electric field generation. We know that the electric field is generated in this case from metal to semiconductor or the substrate side. So we can have like this, from substrate to metal in a reverse direction. Like this. Okay. Or the easier way to remember is with the movement of holes in the substrate. This is the most easy way to remember that which side the bends will bend. Now we know that holes are present all over in the substrate because it is a p-type, it has a majority of the holes, and because of the negative charge applied at the gate terminal, holes have moved upside. Holes have moved upside. So bending of the energy bands is towards the upside. And how much this bending will be? The potential by which this will be bent is known as a psi s, which is a surface potential. So whether it is a N-type silicon or it is a P-type silicon, always remember that the bending of the energy bands will be in the direction of the movement of holes in the substrate. If the holes will move downside, then the bands will bend downside. If the holes are moving upside, then the energy bands will move upside over here. So this is what the accumulation is. Accumulation name is given to it because the majority carriers are being accumulated in the interfacial region by the means of the inverted voltage applied at the gate terminal. Now, followed by this accumulation, we have a depletion process. Now, as the name suggests, depletion means depleted of charge carriers. So, here also in the depletion, we are going to follow the similar process. We will see that how the depletion of the charge carrier will take place and where that depletion will occur. Again, I am explaining it with the MOS structure. This is my P-type silicon. This is ground. In between we have a oxide layer, then the metal layer. And here is the gate terminal on which now I will be applying a small positive voltage. Not a bigger, large one. A small positive voltage will be applied. Earlier in the accumulation, the positive charges were accumulated here at the interfacial region. Now what will happen? Because the positive charge is applied, so positive and positive will repel each other. So this region, which is the interfacial region, will become blank. Means depleted of charge carriers. This will become depleted of charge carriers. Now here one question again arises. If the positive voltage is applied at the gate, why only the positive charge repel down? Why not these minority electrons are coming over here? What's the reason behind it? The reason is that the voltage which is being applied at the gate terminal is a small quantity voltage. It is not so of a such amount that it will be able to pull these minority carriers and get them accumulated over here. So that's why in the depletion process only the very near positive charges which were accumulated here somewhere, they are only repelled back. And that's why the name comes over here, depletion, because it is making this room vacant. So this is basically a cleaning of the surface. This process you can define as a cleaning of the surface, accumulation and depletion. Why cleaning? So that when the channel will form over here for the proper conduction or the current flow, then there will not be any other type of charge present. Only that carriers will be present which are actually required to have the current conduction into the device. Now if we see the energy band view diagram of this, then now here see. Now gate is positive, substrate is at the ground, so the electric field generated will be at this side from the lower potential towards the higher potential. So when I am going to draw this oxide layer in the energy band diagram, this will be from lower towards higher, like this. This is the oxide over here. This is showing the energy electric field. Now here we have again conduction band, valence band, in between intrinsic band, and here we have Fermi potential. Okay. Now see, in the accumulation process, just now I have discussed that the bending of the band will get signified by the movement of the holes in the substrate. Now in this depletion process, holes are moving down. It means the bends will move down like this. And again, the amount by which the bends are bending is denoted by psi s, which is the surface potential. Now, one thing is very important, which I forgot to state earlier, that whenever we are talking of the MOS structure and when we are drawing the energy band diagrams of the MOS, then we know that in between we have an oxide layer. And oxide has a very high band gap between the valence band and the conduction band. So now if we are drawing this band diagram, rather than considering the free space, which is E naught, which we have seen further, that free space energy band is noted as E naught. We take a conduction band of the SiO2 as a reference of free space. Means all the bands which are drawn over here, they are drawn rather than having the calculation with the free space, we are calculating with respect to the conduction band of the SiO2. So this is a very important thing to be noted. Okay. So this is the depletion process where the interfacial region, which is a region where the conducting channel will be formed, that is depleted of the charge carriers. Now we move to the third step, which is a very important step, that is a inversion. So now when we talk of an inversion, inversion is not a single process or a single step process. Inversion basically takes place into a 3 steps, and these 3 steps are noted as onset of inversion, weak inversion, and strong inversion. So basically this inversion process again have a 3 steps into it, and it starts from the onset inversion. The intermediate stage of the inversion is a weak inversion, and the final stage of the inversion process is a strong inversion. So again moving into the process. This type of a surface we had in the depletion, where this interfacial region is totally depleted of the charge carrier. Now here we will give a positive voltage again, but this positive voltage is slightly more than the voltage which is given into the depletion process. Okay. So now what it will do? It will attract a few electrons over here. Few electrons, remember. So still these are not, this density is not so much that it will start with the current conduction. Now again electric field generated will be from substrate to the metal side. Again if I am going to draw this with the help of band diagram, and this is the electric field, conduction band, valence band, in between we have a intrinsic and then Fermi. Okay. This side we have some, let me label of metal. Fine. So now see. Now firstly we have increased the voltage at the gate by a little bit, and what it is doing, it is attracting few electrons towards the interface region. So again the concept is same. if the electrons are get attracted upside, it means reversely we can say because of the application of the positive charge, the holes are moving downside into the deeper substrate region or into the bulk region. So the bending in the band will be downside again. Now first thing, onset of inversion. Onset of inversion means when the bending is in such a way that your intrinsic level will touch the Fermi level. Sorry. When the intrinsic level touches the Fermi level, this is known as a onset of inversion. Onset inversion. Okay, this is how it. And when your intrinsic, now again further what we will be doing, we will increase this voltage by a bit. More number of electrons will be accumulated over here and more holes will be pushed into the deeper bulk region. Okay. So then what will happen? This bending will be a little more. This will become more steep. And what this will result into? Now this bending of the intrinsic level will be somehow this much. Means it has crossed the Fermi level. This intrinsic level has crossed the Fermi level, and we know that the gap between this is denoted as phi f. This is a Fermi potential, or it is also denoted as phi b, which is a bulk potential. So this is crossed over here, but lower to this Fermi potential, Fermi level, it is not equal to the phi f. Means somewhere I can say that psi s, by which this bending is taken place, this psi s is greater than phi f, but psi s is less than 2 phi f. So when this condition is occurring, it means we are into a weak inversion process. We are into a weak inversion process. And when again I am going to increase this potential. Now again I am increasing, so the concentration of electrons or the minority carriers into the interfacial region will be too high, and this will allow the current conduction now, and that state will be shown like this. Means when your intrinsic band will move down the Fermi level by phi f amount, that is inversion, a strong inversion process, where we say that the psi s, which is the surface potential, that becomes equal to 2 phi f. This is known as a strong inversion process. And this is that point where the conduction takes place. So basically at this condition, whatever be the value of gate voltage, the applied gate voltage, that will set the value of the threshold voltage of the device. Clear? So, and now why it is known as an inversion? Now you will see this structure. Just have a look on this structure again. This earlier we were taking this as a p-type semiconductor or p-type silicon. P-type silicon states that the Fermi level is near to the valence level, or we can say the intrinsic level is at the upper side of the Fermi level. But now slowly by the application of the gate voltage, or by applying the gate voltage, this Fermi level has bent, and it is bent in such a way that now it is phi f amount lower to the Fermi level, which is actually a case of a N-type semiconductor. This is a case of N-type silicon, where Fermi level, intrinsic level is below the Fermi level by a phi f potential, and that's why this is known as an inversion process, because just by applying the voltage from the outer source, by the effect of the electric field generated at the interfacial region, the semiconductor is changing its property or inverting its property from either p-type to n-type, or from n-type to p-type, and hence here at this surface we will have a conducting channel present. So this is all about the MOS operation, which is categorized into accumulation, depletion and inversion process, where inversion is of utmost importance, because this is a process which will ensure the conduction of the device. And again, inversion is broken up to a three parts, where first is the onset of inversion. Onset of inversion is when your, again I'll write it in a very similar way, when psi s will equal to phi f, this is onset of inversion. When psi s is greater than phi f but less than 2 phi f, this is weak inversion. And when psi s is equal to 2 phi f, this is a strong inversion. So this is how we categorize the inversion process.